In a small town nestled between hills and thick forests, there existed a chilling urban legend that the townspeople whispered about, especially after the sun dipped below the horizon. His name was Foramento. Foramento stood at an enormous 10 feet 8 inches, his towering figure a terrifying sight. Dressed in a pristine white suit, a deep red tie hanging loosely at his neck, and trousers so white they gleamed under the moonlight, he looked almost out of place in the world. But his most unsettling feature was his skin, deep crimson, as though he had bathed in the blood of his victims long ago. He was always seen carrying baskets of tomatoes, mounds and mounds of them. The town had no idea where he harvested them, but they were always ripe, glistening red and fresh. With an eerie calm, Foramento would stroll through the town, his massive figure casting long shadows that seemed to stretch forever. As night would fall, the true horror of Foramento's routine unfolded. He would take his baskets to the outskirts of the town, slicing the tomatoes with precision. But it wasn't just any ordinary slicing. He would press his sharp blade into the tomatoes, extracting something far more sinister than just seeds. He would then take the blood of those he had quietly murdered in the dark corners of the town and mix it into the fleshy red pulp. With his blood-infused tomatoes, Foramento would head to his secret lair, deep within the forest. There, he baked what he called his tomato pie, though no one dared ask what truly went into the dish. The sweet, tangy aroma that wafted from his hideout was unlike any other, making it almost impossible to resist. But his true act of malice came afterward. Foramento kept hundreds of rats, large, puffy creatures that scurried around his dwelling. Once they were fed on the tainted tomato pies, something extraordinary happened. They grew. They swelled with unnatural size until their skins stretched and pulsed. The rats would then explode in violent bursts, a shower of blood and fur. Foramento, unfazed, would gather the remains and turn them into a new dish, the townspeople's worst nightmare, rat-infused soup. Foramento's bizarre rituals were known only to a few. No one in the town had seen him up close, but every few weeks a villager would disappear. Those left behind could smell the faint scent of tomatoes and the distant sound of rats scuttling through the trees. As time went on, the townsfolk became more paranoid. Who was next? Whose blood would fill the tomatoes? They tried to escape, but those who did were met with the same fate. Foramento's basket always seemed to find its way into their town, a cruel reminder that the monster in the red suit was never too far behind. And so the legend of Foramento lived on, a haunting figure who would continue to terrorize the small town, one tomato at a time. Foramento and the Talking Rat, a fart tale. Foramento was chilling on the shoreline like he always did, collecting his juicy, ripe tomatoes from the great tomato tree. Nobody knew how a tree grew tomatoes, but Foramento didn't ask questions. He just took what he needed and went back to the forest to slice them up. But as he was cutting, some random nosy guy, stumbled upon him. The guy gasped, eyes wide with fear. Foramento, without hesitation, grabbed his special tomato cutting knife and shink, stabbed the dude right in the throat. But he wasn't done. Oh no. He sliced the guy's voice box clean out, looked at it for a second, shrugged, and stuffed it into one of the tomatoes. The guy? He held his throat shut. He survived, but he would never speak again. Meanwhile, Foramento went on with his usual routine. He carried his basket of tomato blood mix back to his rats, dumping the whole thing, voice box, and all into their meal. They gobbled it up, and as expected, they started swelling, getting puffy and round until they exploded one by one, except for one. This rat did not pop. No, this rat spoke. Parentos is coming. Parentos is coming. Foramento froze, his glowing eyes narrowed. Who? But the rat just kept chanting. Parentos is coming. So Foramento did what any rational, blood-crazed giant would do. He squished the rat, threw its mashed remains into the oven with the others, and baked a fresh rat pie. This time, he decided to serve it to the townspeople, but people had caught on to his weird ways. No one wanted a piece of whatever he was cooking. So he got clever. He put up a sign, free pie. And here's the trick. He made sure it didn't smell. That was enough. The people, being the fools they were, grabbed slices and ate. But as soon as they did, chaos erupted. War broke out in the town. No one knew why, but suddenly everyone had an enemy. Blood filled the streets, screams echoed through the alleys. Foramento barely survived. By the time it was over, he was the last one left. And then, in the silence of the empty town, footsteps. Foramento turned. Standing there in the middle of the street was a figure he had never seen before. Tall, dark, unmoving. Parentos has come. The end. Foramento versus Parento, the final slice. Foramento stood alone in the ruined town, surrounded by the remnants of his own chaos. But then, footsteps. Heavy, slow, purposeful. Out of the shadows stepped Parento. He was taller, his dark blue skin blending into the night. He wore a black suit with a white tie, his face emotionless, but his bloody knife gleaming under the moonlight. I was the one who killed them, Parento said, his voice deep and smooth. It wasn't a war, I won it. Formento's fingers tightened around his cutting knife. He grabbed his basket of blood-stained tomatoes, and they charged. Parento was fast. Too fast. His knife sliced clean through Foramento's leg. Foramento roared, stumbling, but he wouldn't go down that easy. With one furious swing, he slashed Parento's stomach open. Blood gushed. Intestines spilled out. Foramento grabbed a chunk of the slippery flesh and stuffed it inside a tomato. Then, snap! The world spun. Foramento didn't even feel it at first. But then he saw it. His head split in half. Parento had cut him down. Foramento collapsed, his body hitting the blood-soaked ground. Without hesitation, Parento stole the tomato, the one filled with his own guts, and walked away. He had a cat. A strange, quiet cat. He fed it the tainted tomato. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, boom! The cat exploded. Parento, unfazed, scooped up the remains, baked them into a pie, and served it to Brittany. The end.